she was a teacher on a field trip with her students when she started to just feel a little bit under the weather. What happened next captured the world's attention and changed her life forever. Sherri Moody and her husband David will join us live, but first, here's a bit of their story. It's a case that has gotten national attention.
You know how a lot of times you go to the doctor when you're running a fever and they're like, oh, it's a virus, it will run its course, and they send you home. So I really honestly just thought it was that.
But Sherri's symptoms were only getting worse. So one night, she woke up her husband and they went to the emergency room.
They were about to blow me away, and David's walking with me, and he just looks at me and he said, look at me. He goes, Sherri, you fight. You fight. Fight for our family, Sherri. You fight. And that was really all that I remember.
Sherri's vitals had dropped, and doctors put her on a ventilator within hours. David was faced with some terrifying news.
She had strep throat, some kind of strep that was a very potent strep throat that turned to sepsis. And then the worst happened. She went into septic shock within another day.
Doctors put her on a medication that forced blood flow away from her arms and legs and into her struggling internal organs. David was then faced with the decision: save Sherri's arms and legs or her life.
I know her, I knew that she would want to fight.
And fight she did. Sherri and David, welcome to DBL.
Good morning.
Thank you both so much for being here and being so transparent about your testimony. Sherri, what were you thinking when you were told that you'd have to lose your arms and legs?
I really did not have a big emotional outburst or anything like that. I think it took me a while to process that information, to be real. I did have a lot of questions, and I don't know that it truly sunk in until after the amputation was over, and then obviously a lot of pain that went with that and a lot of recovery. We had some complications with the amputations as well, which led to other things. However, losing my arms and legs, I would say the realest it got was whenever I got home and started trying to live my life without them.
What were you told about the recovery process?
Well, initially about the recovery process, I felt like it would go quickly. I felt like I would be in prosthetics quickly. In my mind, I thought, okay, I'm just going to start walking again. And I didn't even realize I couldn't feed myself for the longest time. And people were doing it for me, but I didn't realize even what a challenge that would be to get dressed and do those daily kinds of things that I probably took for granted. But I thought all of that was just going to go really fast. But everyone's case is different. In my case in particular, I did suffer a lot of ongoing health issues and have had those health issues, which has prolonged the prosthetic process, so that I'm not quite eligible for those until all of these health factors are resolved.
So David, I got to ask, you and Sherri have been so strong going through all of this. How hard was that recovery process been for both of you?
Well, it's actually still ongoing. It's no doubt the hardest thing that both of us have been through. We both have different pathways of this. Sherri's recovery is, I can't even imagine. I try to put myself in her spot mentally sometimes, but she is absolutely amazing and has kept her same positive attitude throughout the entire process. Mine is more of a caretaker, and that's been a challenge too. It's been a challenge to see your wife struggle so much. Your heart just hurts, and through the hospital stay, going from a point where I didn't know if Sherri was going to make it, and the doctors told me to kind of prepare for that, to watching her limbs actually die over just weeks to a month, and watching that process happen. Our life just kind of changed. It's a completely different life, and it's been really tough. But I think Sherri would tell you that our friendship and our love has been only stronger than it's ever been before. We've been together forever, and so I think it's really helped us make it through this.
I got to tell you something. I was a caretaker, nothing like what you're going through. Do not diminish what you've done, and do not give yourself space, because a lot of people don't see the caretakers in this, and you were an amazing partner and continue to be so. Sherri, going through all of this, you learned your immune suppressant meds for arthritis made you more vulnerable to something like this happening. For our audience, can you just explain a little bit about that? Like, we're 5?
Yes, I can explain that. I had rheumatoid arthritis in what's called Raynaud's syndrome, which is not great circulatory system, where your arms and your legs and stuff would sometimes lose circulation and things like that. So I was on a biologic to help with that. And for me, being on that was a life changer for me. I was able to maintain a healthy lifestyle that I wanted to be able to do. I was able to exercise 5 or 6 days a week with hard cardio and the things that sometimes would not be accessible to a person with rheumatoid arthritis. I was able to eat healthy, and for me, I lived the most healthy lifestyles I could live while taking a biologic, which essentially lowers your immune system.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I never really had to deal with that part of it. I was a teacher for 28 years, so obviously sometimes I would get like a cold and things like that, but my system was able to fight that off for the most part. I was able to get the common cold and the flu, and I had COVID and all the different things. However, I was still able to get rid of it in a timely fashion and go about my life. So it wasn't anything that impacted me for the 5 years that I did take the biologic. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a major, and it was a miracle for me.
Right.
But when this happened, though, that was part of the issue. Is when she was in the ICU, she didn't have an immune system to help fight, and so that was part of the struggle.
Wow.
Right. So it was like a perfect storm coming in with just the double pneumonia, the strep infection, and then basically they said it was going to war without soldiers, and or a Cat 5 hurricane that is just coming in on you, and you have nothing to defend yourself, because my immune system wasn't strong enough to fight all of those things off.
Wow. Sherri and David, you have affected the studio.
Everybody.
And online, everybody. And I want to include David in this too. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your story with us, because look who is here with us now. DVL Nation, you can keep up with Sherri and her recovery on Facebook at Sherri Moody Updates. And you can also send your well wishes there. I'm sure you're going to want to. Sherri and David, you're about to get a lot coming in from the DVL Nation.
It was an honor.
Again, and thank you for fighting. We'll be right back.
Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.